Oh, ladies and gentlemen out there in internet land, welcome to the Reasonably Fine Art Talk for August 18th, 2020. What a year it's been. Oh, such adventures. Well, I'm so glad that you can be here. I'm really enjoying doing these little weekly overviews. This week, I thought we'd dive into my childhood. Come with me, ladies and gentlemen, and meet first my good friend, the Rochester Cat. The Rochester Cat was so named because although we lived in Milford, New Hampshire, my very, very, very tall cousins lived in Rochester, New York. And one time we drove in the 1960 Valiant, which you'll get to meet soon. We drove to Rochester, New York to visit my very, very, very tall cousins. And I remember playing with the electric trains. They were very good electric trains. And when we got back to our home in Milford, New Hampshire, which is where this is, we opened the car door and there was a cat. Now, we never know if the cat was at the house waiting for us to arrive, or if the cat had traveled under the seat all the way from Rochester. But in any case, this fine fellow lived with us for a number of years and was known as the Rochester Cat. Behind me in this photograph is a silhouette of my large-headed brother, William, who I called Weejum. So a silhouette of Weejum, and out the windows are my beloved barns, which were taken when Route 101 bypassed downtown Milford, New Hampshire. I think the trauma of my beloved barns, there were so many good ways to injure yourself in those barns. You could fall off of things, you could step on nails, you could get attacked by chickens. I think losing the barns is what led me to my endlessly gloomy painting style. So let us move from come with me now to just outside this window. In fact, it's not that maple tree, but it's a one right next to it. It's right on that side. Yes, this is Charles and William collecting maple sap for backyard sugaring in March of 1965. Now, this photograph was in a Family Photographs 1965 was actually the name of the book, because it was Family Photographs from 1965. And I love family photographs. I love untutored photography. Just the way that tree is slam bang right in the center, bisecting the porch. The children are blurry. They're weird sun blots on the side of the 1960 Plymouth Valiant. Everything about this appeals to me. Now, that 1960 Plymouth Valiant, that was the first car that I remember us having. And it was purchased in 1961 when the new Valiants, the 1961 Valiants, were about to come out. Or was it, I don't, anyway, it was purchased. It was still on the lot from the year before. So we got a good price for it, which was a good thing because it never really worked worth a damn. Anytime you went through a puddle, it would stall at the next intersection. And you had to get out and dry off the distributor cap to get it to go again. This also is the exact spot where my mother would park it every day. And I had a pet rabbit who one day she was not paying attention and she backed up and she ran over the rabbit. And that was it for the rabbit. That rabbit's name was George Refrigerator. George Refrigerator was so named because my brother had a rabbit, my brother Graham had a rabbit called Urinating Parsnip. And Urinating Parsnip's name was an object of high hilarity in my family. And being a reasonably competitive youth, I wanted a similarly interesting name. But bodily functions were never my big go-to source for humor. So I went with George Refrigerator. Anyway, let us pause for a moment, raise a glass to George Refrigerator. Hi, Linda Marie Crab in Italy. Buongiorno, buongiorno, Linda Marie. Or maybe it's buonanotte at this time. Anyway, yes, David Wood, this is the painting that I am working on. And come with me now, and we will climb inside this painting. Oh, one last thing before we go away from it. I wanted to say directly behind me is some white structure that I really can't figure out what it is. But behind that white structure is an apple tree from which I nearly killed myself by climbing way up high in it and then falling off and just grabbing a branch and dangling in the air, calling from my mother, who came running out of the house, and I fell into her arms, which was very nice of her. And then behind that is a hillside where we used to fly kites. It was the best place for kite flying. And then when they put the highway through, that was it for the hill. All right, come with me now into the process of painting. This is a close-up of what the entire surface looked like. So I projected the photograph because I'm doing a lot of projecting this summer in the studio. Why? Because most of the time in the summer, I would be out at plein air painting events. That's where I'm really working my eye-hand coordination. And so when I'm in the studio, I don't feel like I particularly need to be exercising that quite so much. I can now kind of use the benefits that I have gotten from that working knowledge of how to draw. So I am taking a bunch of old photographs and doing projections. So I project it and I do a pencil trace. Then I cover the pencil trace with a layer of acrylic matte medium. So that means I can wail on the surface, and it also makes the surface a little less absorbent. Next slide, please. So this was the first pass that I did with the with very, very watery Cobra water-mixable oils, Van Dyke Brown. So I'm using a large brush in the foreground where it's really just almost like the merest hint of almost watercolor wash. And then in the other passages, I'm using a variety of brushes, but really just coloring in that trace that I have done. Next slide, please. So there's the close-up of on the left are me and my brother, the tree trunk. Behind us is the porch and the side of the house. And then to the right is that close-up is the Plymouth Valiant. So that shows you the kind of the laying in process. Next slide, please. Here's a close-up of the tree branches. As I was working on this part, I was thinking how what I talked about last week about experimentation and those kind of gestural paintings, I absolutely was taking stuff I had thought about while doing those gesture paintings while I was doing this shading in of the coloring in of the tree branches. Next slide. So this is the completed first pass. Now you will note that on the left, it's kind of it's kind of more olive color, and on the right, it's more reddish. And that is because, ladies and gentlemen, on the left, I was using a pile of Van Dyke Brown that had been sitting out for several days on my palette. And there's something that happens with the oxidation. When you liquefy it with water, it goes down more olive. When it's straight out of the tube, it precipitates, and you do a very, very, very watery pass. It precipitates out quite orange. Claire asked if I said what size the painting was. I have not yet. It is 30 inches by 30 inches. And that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. I like painting in squares. I also, at this point, the important thing to me, whether one side is skewing orange and one side is skewing olive, isn't that important to me. But what's important to me is now, at this block-in stage, thinking about kind of how I want to tell the story. And to me, graphically, you've got the delicious challenge of that tree. And then you've got the very, very strong graphic element of the side of the house in light and the side of the house in shadow. And the organic form of the tree and the hillside behind versus the man-made forms of the house and the car. As I was working on this painting, I started out painting very, very badly. I started, after I did this first pass, I let it dry, and then I came back. Next slide. And this was the first pass that I did. I went very, very dark, starting in lower right, working toward the center. And I stepped back at the end of this day. I stepped back and I went, that looks awful. And so the great thing that one can do with Cobra water mixable oils is if the paint hasn't set, you can go and very gently wash the paint off the surface. So I did. I got rid of all of that. Then I think I painted starting with the figures, and I didn't like that either, and I washed that off. I didn't take a picture of that because you would lose all respect for me if you did see that. Next slide, please. So I started in a different place. I started in at the top because I knew that I wanted that tree up at the top to be very, very dark. I wanted to come in from the top with that real strong downward thrust. And this was about a 3-hour session painting here. I was very happy when I got to this point. I really started feeling like I knew how I wanted to tell the story. That is, to have areas of great detail, unexpected areas of great detail, or of great graphic contrast, which would be the upper tree trunk. And yes, you would, Joanne. Yes, you would. The upper tree trunk, and then that delicious, sharp shadow of the side of the house and the porch. And then see how more vague the automobile and to the right is compared to the tree, the tree branches and the house. Next slide, please. This is a close-up. Sorry for the glare. These are just snapshots in the studio, but a close-up of the tree branch. So I'm doing I'm doing exaggerated graphic shapes for the tree branches there. They're not as thorny and spiky as I am making them, but I liked the effect, and I also just had a lot of fun painting that in. It reminded me of like old, almost like Rick Griffin lettering from the Grateful Dead. I was never a Deadhead. I just had a lot of friends who were Deadheads who had me do lettering for them in the style of the Grateful Dead. And I liked the Grateful Dead graphics. I liked Kelly Mouse and I liked Rick Griffin. So this is my little homage to Rick Griffin, even though it is a tree branch from Milford, New Hampshire. Next one. Next slide. Oh, this is a close-up of the "You Are So Stupid" technique as applied to the automobile. I say, buy my video, because you should buy my video. Why? Because I explain the "You Are So Stupid" technique. What the "You Are So Stupid" technique is you take a clean piece of paper towel and you hit like this, just brush lightly against the surface. And what that does is it removes paint. And when you're working with really transparent paints like I'm working with here, you can you start seeing the texture of the gesso, the brush marks from the gesso underneath. And I like things that take away. One of the things I never liked about photorealism is it's just so antiseptic. There's no wildness to it. And the "You Are So Stupid" technique allows for the inherent wildness of the substrate to show through. It is called the "You Are So Stupid" technique. No, you have to get the video to find out why it is called the "You Are So Stupid" technique. Now, Marty asks, is the support canvas on board? Yes, it's muslin on Gatorboard. Next slide, please. So this is this was the completed first pass on the painting. I have done. Think of it as like lighting a stage set. When I did just that watery darkening in of the trace, that was constructing the stage set. This here is the first preliminary lighting of the stage set. And so what I am thinking about here as I am building this is, what do I want to emphasize? And it's the back of the car, the shadow in the back of the car. As I say, that delicious contrast of the light and shadow of the side of the house, and the darkness on the tree trunk and precision of those tree branches. In the upper left, that second floor window. Now that second floor window was in the room where I was with the cat, but I was not looking out. We were not looking out that window. But that second floor window, I didn't really want to have two windows with equal graphic telling the same story. So I could vary the windows in terms of how I applied the paint. But I decided I really liked how it faded out, almost like a photograph that has, been in the sun so long and it just it's starting to ghost away. And so I very carefully, when I was doing my second more oily pass with the paints, just blended out. So I really was just the first pass underneath, and then slowly, as we got down toward the first story window and the car, and when we got toward the tree trunk with the branches, I started oiling in and adding more pigment. The problem here, ladies and gentlemen, the problem that this painting encountered is that I'm a little too clever for my own good now and again. And what happened was, I was like, oh, I really like how I did that upper left, the upper right. In the lower left, I had done the first pass of paint, right? The coloring in of the photograph trace. And I thought, I will take my can of white spray paint and I will spray a gentle pass on the lower left. Nice idea in theory, ladies and gentlemen, nice idea in theory. However, what happened was, for some reason, the spray paint, which is perfectly legal to do because the first pass of Cobra water mixable oils was fully dry. So I spray painted it. I put a light pass of spray paint there. But what that did for some reason was it changed the color rather than just lightening the Van Dyke brown. It gave it an odd cold pink color. And you can see, look at that lower left corner. See how it is kind of weirdly cold pink? And that's just a function of the spray paint on top of the first pass of the Cobra. At this point, in mild desperation, I really wasn't that worried about it because there are a million ways you can solve the problem. But I was starting with the least intrusive option that occurred to me to deal with. So I took a toothbrush and a very, very watery mix of, it has to be water with a little bit of oil and a little bit of pigment, and spattered. I believe the next slide shows that close up. Yes, that was white spray paint with watery toothbrush spatter atop it. This photo doesn't show the pink that much. Again, as I say, these aren't color corrected; they're just snapshots. But I liked what was going on with the opacity. I just did the cool pink did not work. Linda Marie now asks if she can get a refund on the videos, and the answer is no. In fact, you now have to pay me for a third one. How about that? Ha! And let's go to the next slide. So this was my experiment. I wanted to see if the values, absent that weird cool pink color, I wanted to see if my values were working the way I wanted them to. So I took a photograph of the painting as it was with the weird cool pink on the lower left, converted it to black and white, and then just with the controls on the phone, there's a sepia control. So I turned it into a sepia to see if the balance was what I wanted. And yes, the balance was pretty much exactly what I wanted. So this was just a personal reference. Now, I think Linda was saying that, no, it wasn't Linda, Lee was saying that she liked the straight house line against the organic trunk. And Marty says that she likes how the roof line is completely lost. Yeah, Marty, that was a conscious decision. I thought that the corner of the gutter, that is in the crotch of the tree, that is sharp enough, and the tree branches go in such a defined way that parallels the roof line that I did not need to differentiate sky color from house color. And also, since I'm treating that area of the painting as kind of a blasted out area, the less information there, the better. Next slide, please. So then what I did with that problematic lower left-hand corner was I took Cobra painting medium. I could have used the quick dry medium, but the painting medium was close at hand. So I just grabbed the painting medium and added a little bit of water and a little bit of pigment and mixed it up very, very thoroughly on my palette, which is a glass palette, and I've got palette knives. And I wanted it to be it was the consistency of, it's thicker than salad dressing, but the consistency of motor oil, really. Actually, motor oil would be a great color to paint with. It would smell bad and take a long time to dry. But anyway, so it's the consistency of motor oil. And I just brushed it on. And then I took the squeegee and kind of knocked it. You can see above the signature, there's almost a straight line coming down from the middle left to the middle center. Middle left, middle lower third. That's probably done with the squeegee. It was just hitting it with a few things to break up the brush strokes. And then I laid paper towel on top of it, but I didn't evenly pull off the paint. I just kind of very roughly blotted it. And I got this, you can see now, and the color that I used here was mostly Van Dyke brown, but with a hint of olive green and a hint of transparent oxide red. And that's because those colors, I use the Van Dyke brown mostly because it's convenient. The red and green mixed together can be virtually that same color and actually have a little bit more dynamic excitement, it feels to me. So you can see a little bit of red in, like, above the U on my signature. And then, even though the painting isn't fully done, I did sign it just because I could see that it would be a wonderful, that wet medium was going to dry. And so I don't like having really prominent signatures. So just with the heel of a brush, I just signed it, just carved into that wet medium. Next slide, please. So this is what it looks like at present. Now in this photograph, it actually still looks kind of cold pink down there, but I promise you that in my studio, it does not look cold pink down in that corner. And there is not as much glare there is glare in this photograph up in the tree, on the top of the tree trunk, but it's not that glary in real life. Now, the figures, I really kind of painted to the figures as opposed to painting the figures themselves. I want them to really inhabit this painting, but it is not a portrait. And the danger to me in painting figures very often is that we overwork them because we're trying to convey all this information. It's doing it this way, the figures sort of emerge out of the rest of the painting. And it's the same way that I did the truck in my new video that you should all purchase. If you have not already, if you have purchased it already, you should really buy a second one, just as a safety copy in case something happened to the first one. But really, painting so that the objects emerge as opposed to painting the objects, I find makes for a more unified composition. So that is where this stands right now. Oh, go back to that one. Go back to that one, Betty Sue. Yeah, that's where this one stands right now. I am letting the passage in the lower left dry. It'll probably take about a week because that painting medium does not dry particularly quickly. And then in a week, I will look at it again. But right now, I am pretty happy with how this is. Some of the tree branches in the sky on the not in the middle left are a little clunkier than I would like. So I might take the sander to them, but I may not. I'm just going to let it, do its thing for about a week, and then I will look at it again. You could buy a second, Brenda. Yes, you could buy a second and keep it in another room. You could buy a third, really. Brenda has very, very good ideas. Yeah, Kevin, exactly. It's hard not to have figures steal the show when they're in a painting. And I really like how the Valiant and the house are really the things occupying this scene. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming with me into this this exploration of childhood scene. I'm working on another painting now of Bellows Falls, of a gas station right across from my studio. But it's in the background, but it's in its heyday, because right now it's not in its heyday, but it's a lovely gas station. And I'll show you where we come to with that one. Also, next week, you'll want to join us for the Reasonably Fine Art Talk, because my guest next week is the fantastic Utah painter, Doug Fryer, who I admire the heck out of. He's Mormon, so I can't say I admire the hell out of it. But anyway, he's one of my absolute favorite painters and a wonderful human being. So thank you all for watching. Take good care, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.